Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries, and in this episode we're aiming it right at our teachers, and the topic today is some signs that you're a 21st century teacher. Now this doesn't mean that you're a teacher teaching in the 21st century, because if you're teaching now, you're teaching in the 21st century. What this means is, are you using some of those 21st century skills that we want incorporated into the classroom, and are you using them with your students? And so I'm going to give you just a few, maybe 10 or 11 kind of hints that you might be a 21st century teacher, and then I'm going to shoot you to a place where there's a whole ebook that you can read about it. So I want to give a shout out to the people at Simple K-12. They're the ones that actually produced the ebook that has 21 signs that you're a 21st century teacher. We pulled a few of them out of that, and so and then at the end of this show I'll show you how to get that little ebook. It's a really interesting ebook. So let's go ahead and start. What are some of the signs that you might be a 21st century teacher? Well, this first one has to do with social media, and you ask your students to use social media to do homework. Now, a lot of times people confuse social media with Facebook. They say, that's it, social media is just Facebook. I'm not going to ask my students to get up on Facebook and do their homework, and that's perfectly acceptable, but Facebook is not the only type of social media out there. There's lots of different kinds of social media. Blogs are social media, wikis are social media, podcasts are social media. So if you're actually asking your students to do things like create a blog entry or answer a blog entry that you've created, or you're having your students work on a wiki, or you're having your students do a podcast, or maybe even upload something to YouTube, then you're asking them to work in social media. And so that's one of the signs that you're a 21st century teacher, that you're allowing your students to answer you back or answer your questions in social media. Now again, one of the things that we've always tried to emphasize here is that you have access, as a teacher in Texas, you have access to all these tools absolutely free in Project Share Texas. Blogs, wikis, forums, listservs, all these different kinds of things are available to you for free in Project Share Texas. And so those are some other trainings and some other videos that we've done. But if you're sitting here thinking, I don't have access to any of that stuff, I don't know what he's talking about, you actually do in Project Share Texas. So one of the first signs is you're asking your students to use social media to do their homework. So, okay, let's look at another sign that you might be a 21st century teacher. Students use a variety of sources in research. They use blogs, they use podcasts, text, audio, and video. You're allowing your students to pull in data and information. Whenever they're doing research, you're asking them to get information from a whole lot of different resources. It's not just written text as a resource. You've moved on beyond that written text. So you allow them to do research. You allow them to get information from online sources like a video interview, for instance, or an audio interview, or a TED Talk, or something like that. You're allowing them to pull information off of places like YouTube or any kind of video place. They can get that information as one of the primary sources for their research. You're allowing them to do that. Blogs, podcasts, text, audio. Maybe they've gotten something off of iTunes U, which we've talked about in the past as something that they do for their research. And they even might be able to pull something off of some kind of video source. So that's another sign that you're a 21st century teacher. Another one is students work collaboratively with students outside of their school. Now that's kind of an interesting idea there. We've always had our students work collaboratively together. We always have them worked in groups. That's nothing new. But in the 21st century, we want our students to work beyond just the walls in their classroom. We want them to work beyond just the hallways at their school. We want them to actually work together beyond their school. So if students at, for instance, Franklin High School are working on a research paper, chances are students at Burgess are working on that same type of research paper. So why aren't they working together? Why aren't they pooling their resources together? Why aren't they pulling in students from Irvin and from Jefferson and Bowie and all of our high schools? Why aren't they working together? And then why aren't they working with students outside of El Paso, maybe over in the Isleta School District, or maybe somewhere in Houston or Austin. Students should be working together all over the place. Now you say to yourself, well, I don't know, how do I do that? That means I will have to know teachers in other schools, in other cities, and that's absolutely right. You do have to get together and you do have to start working with teachers outside of your campus, and that's part of a professional learning network, and we'll talk about that in a second. Another sign that you might be a 21st century teacher is that you have a blog yourself, and you use that blog for home to school communication. You no longer are just sending home paper as your home to school communication. You actually are writing things on your blog, and you're keeping that blog up to date. You haven't made one blog entry in August and then haven't had another one until May. You actually keep that blog up to date to let parents know what's going on in school, what's going on in your classroom. Parents can actually go up to your blog, see what's happening, what are the assignments due, all that kind of stuff. So parents and students know that they can use your blog as a place of information. So you're using a blog for home to school communication. That's a great sign that you're a 21st century teacher. You let students use microblogging to send you answers during class. Isn't that an interesting thought? Maybe they're using Today's Meet or Twitter. We've talked about Today's Meet earlier in a previous show, and that's a microblogging suite where students can actually be doing something called the back channel. They can actually be typing in questions while you're presenting your lesson in class, and so you're able to see the students' questions. You might say to yourself, well, why don't students just raise their hand in class? Why can't they just like, hey, miss, what's the answer here? Well, some of those shy students may not want to raise their hand, but when you put them in front of a computer, let them ask a question online in something like Today's Meet or on Twitter, you might be surprised at the number of students that actually come out of the woodwork and actually become very verbose when they're online. They might not say a thing in class, but put them in front of a computer and they become very verbal, except they type it all up. So you let students use microblogging sites like Today's Meet or Twitter to ask questions during class or to send you the answers during class. That's a good sign that you're a 21st century teacher. Another one is you ask students to turn in assignments using video format. Well, what does that mean? Well, perhaps you've asked students to do a project on a particular book, or you've asked them to do some kind of research. Does the research always have to be written? That's a question that we struggle with as teachers. You know, it's very easy to grade a written assignment, but wouldn't it be very interesting if that same assignment was done as a video, where students are asked to upload a video to YouTube, for instance, or upload a video to your blog site, for instance, and then you can grade it as a video instead of as a written assignment. The students still have to do the exact same type of assignment. They're just doing it in video format instead of written format. And actually, if you think about it, the students have to do all the writing process to get to that video. So you're not eliminating any kind of writing assignment. If the theme of if the objective of the lesson is to do writing, well, they've done the writing. Now they've just turned that writing into video. Same thing is if you let them do it in audio format. Maybe, for instance, they want to turn in a podcast instead of a written paper. It'd be interesting to see what kind of response you get from your students if you allow them to turn in video or audio. I bet you'd get some very, very interesting papers. Here's a very interesting one that I didn't think about till I saw this: substitutes. Now, we always have issues with substitutes. What do you do with your lessons? What do you do? How do you get the lesson to the substitute? How do you know the substitute actually got your lesson? This is a very interesting thing. Substitutes can go onto your website to get your class information and to get your lesson plans. They can actually download them from your website. That's a very interesting thing. You never have to say, well, they couldn't find it in my desk, they couldn't find the papers that I left them. It's online, and so there's no chance of them losing it. They just have to go up to your website, download the lesson. Isn't that an interesting thought? That's a good idea, and it's a good sign that you're a 21st century teacher. We love to create study guides. We as teachers love to create study guides, but that's a lot of work that we have to do. So the idea from the Simple K-12 ebook that we're getting some of this information from is that the study guide for class is actually constructed by the students on a wiki. If you're not familiar with what a wiki is a website that students can do collaborative work with. It's kind of like a collaborative document. So students are up on a wiki creating the class study guide. Instead of you doing all the work, have the students do the work. Make that an assignment. What's our study guide? What's important? What's going to be on the test? Instead of you constantly giving that information to the students, let the students be the constructors of their own knowledge. Let them put that together, and then they can share that with the entire class. That wiki would be available online for everybody. And again, that goes back to that idea of collaborative work where the students are working together, not just one class, but maybe multiple classes are putting in information into that wiki. So, study guide for the class is constructed by the students on a wiki. That's a great way to get students to review. It's also a great way to get students involved in their own learning. This goes back to that idea we talked about a little bit earlier about setting up your class with other teachers and being able to network your class with other classes at different high schools. You have a professional learning network with teachers across the globe, not just in El Paso, but all over the place. Wouldn't it be very interesting if you're doing a unit on Australia and you actually know a teacher that's got a class in Australia that you could talk to, that you can get up online, you can talk to them, you can exchange information, maybe even do some kind of video conferencing. Your professional learning network isn't just limited to your school. It isn't just limited to your department or grade level. Your professional learning network is worldwide. It's global. You should, a very interesting thing to do is to make yourself a little Google map. You know, the Google Maps have those little dots on them. And if you made a dot for every one of the people that you're connected with, that you get professional information from, see how many dots are beyond just the city that you live in, beyond just El Paso, for instance. Do you have dots in Austin? Do you have dots in Houston? Do you have dots in Albuquerque? Do you have dots in New York? Where are your dots located? If you're trying to get information, who's out there helping you? Who's out there giving you information? The more dots you have on that map, the better your professional learning network is. And so you can get that professional learning network up and going. It takes time. It's one of the things that it's not something you just start a blog and all of a sudden thousands of people are in your professional learning network. It's something that you have to nurture and grow just like a garden. And so this is a great sign that you're a 21st century teacher, is that you have a professional learning network with teachers across the globe. I like this one, budget, smudge it. You know, we've used that excuse for years and years and years. I don't have enough money to do X, Y, and Z. There's no money in the budget. Principals love to say that. Administrators love to say, there's no money. We don't have any money for anything. But you know what? Now there's so many free resources online. There's so many things that are free, that are available to you and me and teachers and students that are at your fingertips. And so you just say, you know what? It's okay. We don't have to buy it. We've got access to it, or we have access to a free version of it. And it's, so there's so many free resources online, you don't care. So how do you find out about those free resources? You go back to your professional learning network. That's where you find out about all those resources, is that you've nurtured and you've grown your professional learning network. They're the ones that are telling you, hey, here's some really cool tools that you can use in your classroom. So you can say, budget, schmudge it. There's so many free resources online. My professional learning network is telling me about it. It doesn't matter anymore. I can find it on my own with the help of my friends. This is one that I really like as a person that's in charge of instructional technology professional development. This one hits close to home here. You can create your own professional development using online resources like blogs and podcasts. You know, a lot of times we want to learn things, but the professional development that a school or a district provides doesn't meet our needs. For years and years and years, the model has always been, we wait around for the professional development to come to us. We just sit, we're like a rake. We just hope that it comes to us. We pull it toward us. We hope something happens. But really, the model now should be shifting to go out and find it on your own. Go out, if your school is not providing the professional development that you need, go out and find it. It's out there online. That goes back to this one, the budget smudge it. If they say we don't have the money to send you to a conference, that's okay. Chances are the conference is online for free, or parts of that conference is online for free. You can go to it on there. You want to take a course, you don't have the money to take a course, that's all right. You can go up to iTunes U, something that we've already talked about before, find a course, take it online, do it on your own for free. So there's lots of professional development opportunities out there like iTunes U, like we talked about in previous episodes of Digital Discoveries. There's blogs, there's podcasts. You can start creating your own professional development. It's called do-it-yourself professional development. And so this is a big, big trend in professional development where you kind of create your own menu and you go for it. And so that's something very interesting. Those are just a few of the 21 signs that you're a 21st century teacher. There's a whole bunch more in this really nice ebook that you can download. Doesn't matter what kind of device you have, even if you have a desktop or laptop or an iPad, doesn't matter. There's a really cool book out there from Simple K-12, and it's called 21 Signs that you're a 21st century teacher, and that's how you get to it. I'm going to leave that up there just for a second. It's http tinyurl.com B5DNJ7Y. That's how you get to it. Again, it's tinyurl.com B5DNJ7Y. 21 signs that you're a 21st century teacher. I gave you about 10 or 11 of them. Go out and find the other 10. Again, I want to give a shout out to Simple K-12. That's a really interesting organization, Simple K-12. They got a lot of good information and a lot of free information that's available for you. They're always doing webinars that you can log into and get free information from. So that's a pretty good resource. And so when you're out there teaching, maybe this summer when you've got some time to do some professional development on your own, maybe you should ask yourself this question: are you a 21st century teacher? I hope you are, and if you're not, I hope you become one. Thanks for joining me today on this edition of Digital Discoveries. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.